pleasant morning to you out there. The program is the Dailies on Echo Television International today, being the 15th of January 2024. Quite a number of stories on the paper. We're still having the issue of the sisters that were being kidnapped in Abuja, and we're seeing as a lot of people are sending in their donation, including Pitami, where we see that it's needed for these children to be reunited with their family again. Reports have it that about one person was being killed, that one of the sisters has been killed, just to send a message to the parents. And we have quite a number of other stories also relating to issues surrounding security, employment, unemployment as well. And then you just keep tight and then drop your comments or even your views on Facebook and on YouTube. And then also later on the show, we will open the phone lines because we would love to hear what your own feedbacks are. My name is Ella Elisha Dashim, and I'll be doing the program with Rachel Tanzi. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Great. How was the weekend?
Weekend was okay.
Okay,
Really
I
fast.
mean, we had Nigeria playing AFCON yesterday, and then it was
Yes.
a draw. What's your reaction concerning that, Rachel?
I mean, Zella is disappointing.
Okay.
I don't think Nigeria should struggle in the group stage. We
Mm.
should come out of the group stage very strong. Like all win, every match, every opponent we face, we should come out strong. Because there are other stronger teams that we will face, and we are not yet sure of the outcome. So when you have a team that statistically you should be better than them, then you should show that you are better than them. I mean, if we're already struggling in the group stage, I can imagine if we will be able to scale through the knockout stages and if we can make it that far. So it's not a good start at all. It's not. And then Nigeria should have done better. So overall, it's a disappointing start.
A lot of people are saying waste of talent, waste of resources,
True.
waste a lot of waste. But just like you said, well, we hope that they will tie their belt and
We
actually
hope
do
so, yes.
better. Well, we have quite a number of stories on the paper, just like I told you, and we'll be starting with the Voice of Liberty newspaper.
On Voice of Liberty, House of Representatives extend recess to resume January 30th. Conduct renewed hope integrity test of FEC members, APC chieftain urges Tinubu. And on economic restructuring, APC molds implementation of El-Rufai committee report on true federalism. The big story is still true federalism military regime will not happen again, coming from IBB. Former military head of state Ibrahim Babangida have said a military regime will no longer happen in Nigeria because citizens are interested in democracy. YPP set to stage mega protest march January 18. And on Zamfara kidnapping, bring back our children alive. We have distraught Akwa Ibom NYC members, parents, 7 beg the federal government. Sarab asks Apabio Abbas to cut self-serving 344.85 billion naira National Assembly budget. This is concerning the economy. Abducted sisters outrage as netizens seek donation to pay bandits 100 million naira ransom. And that's all the news on Voice of Liberty.
And on the first newspaper, still on the issue of the kidnapping, ex-minister Peitami friend raises 50 million naira ransom for kidnapped sisters. As Atiku Obi condemned Nabehi's killing, lament increasing insecurity. What bandits told us before we found her corpse. This is coming from the uncle. They are threatening to kill other sisters, says family members. IGP vows to rescue the remaining 5 sisters unhurt. Ex-minister accuses security agency of not using NIN SIM policy to track the criminals. And I think a lot of people have said that, Rachel. I mean, if we have the NIN registration, it's expected. I mean, you should be able to trail all of these things. How did the Very true. How did the bandits communicate with the parents? How were they able to do a lot of things? When did they drop the corpse of one of the sisters that they killed? How come nobody saw them? Because this is when the security agents are supposed to be up and about. They are supposed to be extremely vigilant to see what is happening. But then it's quite a sad one. I mean, just looking at the picture, you could tell how united this family is. And you could see the sisters have this very strong code of love that nobody can separate them. And no one that was saying that one of the sisters was being killed. This is a very sad story. And this still talking about the issue of the, because these families reside around Bari area of Abuja, and we saw it even on Friday. A number of people have been kidnapped in that same resident, or even in the FCT. So right now, I just hope that security agency will do all their best. We're seeing even the issue of those core members that have been kidnapped. Till date, we're yet to hear the story or hear feedbacks or development, what is happening, so that these core members can reunite again. I mean, they're supposed to maybe be finishing their service soon, because they were on their way going to come when this thing happened. So I do not know what the security agency is doing presently, because from the look of things, a lot of Nigerians will feel that if they are sleeping on their duty. But we just hope that that is not what it is. But we hope that they will be open about check on these girls. It really breaks my heart that one of them was being killed. But I just hope that we don't keep having, it has become like a trend until when one person is being killed, just to send a message to tell them that we are serious. We're seeing that they've even resolved asking for donation. There was an account number that was being dropped, so they'll be able to realize 100 million, because it was said that they sent about 30 million naira, and that was what provoked this bandits, and then they killed one of the sisters, saying they need to get their money. So we hope that something better, we need process, we need something, progress in all of this thing eventually.
Marcella, it's not just thinking that the military or our security agencies are not doing their job. It's the fact that they are not, and they're sleeping on their job. You wonder, why do we have the federal government of Nigeria? You wonder, why are we put under pressure to link our NIN, to have BVNs, to have all of these forms of identification? And you wonder, what is it for? That is the question. What is it for? Is it just, that's the question.
Is it just for opening your bank? Is it just for SIM registration?
Is it just for the banks to keep making tons of profit on Nigerians, just to keep saying, okay, this charges fee, that, like, what are these things really for? The NCC, what are you on our neck every day, sending us text messages, threatening to block our lines if we don't link our NI? Is it just for your profit, or truly, what is the Nigerian government, when you see all of these things being put in place, and yet you see that we have, the government can't use it for basic tracking, for basic upgrading of the security? You wonder, what is it for? It just keep telling you, where are we heading to? It means we're sleeping on our job. It means as much as we want to be hopeful, things just keep revealing itself, that kind of puts us in a position that, can we even really have hope? That is the question here, because what is all of that? You keep seeing these kidnappers communicating, and you can't even, and we have cell phone towers in all of these areas you're traveling. You see them, and these are indicators, okay, this person should be making this call from this place, because this cell phone tower is pinging that this person is from this place. Where is their hideout? Because they are able to communicate. So it automatically means you should be able to say, this is the location, these calls are coming in. What are we doing with the fundings that we keep getting to the military? We have supplementary budgets going to the military. We have them having aids coming in left, right, center, international aids, apart from the government. What are we doing with these fundings? And when you see little things that we should be above by now when it comes to security, we're not, and then you wonder. So I just hope that people in authority, our government, our security agents, wake up, because the news on our papers don't say they are doing their job. It's really sad for us, and I keep saying that it's impossible, and I don't believe it, that bandits, terrorists are above the Nigerian military. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. Whatsoever is not true. We are above them. We're just not doing the needful, and that is why we are in the position where we are.
Richard, if you ask me, I think these people are exposed to an information that our military are not exposed to, because for every time they tend to be above, or they tend to be ahead of the military, and you can't help but wonder, how do they get all of this information? Richard, I believe they read the papers. I believe they listen to the news, so they know everything that the government is doing. So perhaps, just perhaps, Richard, our military need to dive into another different methods. You remember what happened during the Hamas and Israel? Israel didn't see that coming. Why? Because the Hamas used a different method. Israel felt that they were intelligent digitally, but Hamas used the analog method of not knowing that something was happening. So maybe, just perhaps, maybe our military need to do something different.
They
That
need
this
to.
military will not, they are,
They,
sorry, not military, but that this bandit will not
yeah.
see it coming. Because, I mean, Nabiha's killers need to be brought to book.
Yeah.
It really beats my heart to see that somebody is out there, and you never can tell how many more people are out there. We're seeing even Zamfara complaining about the way these bandits are, really doing a lot of havoc there. Last week we saw in the papers where they are saying that they will keep destroying farmers, fishermen if they do not pay their levies. And I asked the question, Rachel, while I'm busy paying tax to the Federal Internal Revenue Service, I'll be paying tax as well to bandits just so that I can go to my farmland, just so that my ward can make it to school. Is that how Nigeria has turned out to be? They are being ruled by bandits. I don't even want to believe that whatsoever. But just like I said, I believe that maybe they are exposed to an information that military are not. And so our military need to do something better. Because this is not just even for the military. The IGP is involved as as good as well as even I believe that even the civil defense will also be involved in this, because this is not just for one body to actually look into it. So we'll just hope, we pray, and we trust that and every other person that's in this den of these bandits, kidnappers, will be brought back, and then they'll be able to reunite with their family members. Still on the first newspaper, don't contest 2027 presidential election. PDP group advises Tinubu. Article, you can find detail of that story inside the paper. Still on first news, we have Governor Utu assures support for families of fallen heroes. Yesterday, we marked the Army's Remembrance Day. So here we're seeing Governor Utu assure support for families of fallen heroes. Last week, I think we saw in the paper where some of the widows said some of the soldiers that died in the plane crash, I mean, back then in 1992, so they are still not being compensated, and they are asking for compensation. We hope the government will also compensate those widows as well. Still on first newspaper, Ganduji Wawuna makes Governor Yusuf Elders cancel. You can find detail of that in the paper. Don't take Tinubu for granted, Benga Daniel tells Nigerians, detailed in the paper. Detractors plot against me always fail, says Wiki. You can find more detail also inside the paper. Other stories still on first newspaper, we have Lagos tax force impound 344 motorcycles vow to end Okada operations. Coming from Edo Guba election that is coming up soon, APC National Working Committee to meet Oshomole, Eze Iyamu, and other stakeholders today. And still on the verdict, Supreme Court verdict, we never trade off Kanu. Coming from the APC, denies pact with the NNPP. Tinubu appoint first female permanent secretary for Education Ministry. We hope that she will represent the gender and also do her best to make sure that she delivers. Downside of the paper, we also have phone robbery chops off teenagers 2 fingers in Abuja. Phone robbery chops off teenagers 2 fingers in Abuja. This is really a sad one. Abuja is becoming a soft spot. I hope that security will sweep into action, because I mean that will really send danger to a lot of people that are living there. And that's all on the first newspaper.
On leadership newspaper, Kingmakers reject the position of Kogi monarch. Armed Forces Day, we won't compromise Nigeria's unity, a statement from Senate President Akpabio. We have a fact check. Does CBN intend to move some departments to Lagos? It is a question. And we have on numbers, Middle East crisis may worsen food insecurity. You can find details of both stories on page 2. Detained vessel, we loaded 199 tons of crude oil, a statement coming from captain of that vessel. You can find details on page 7. Sacked Plateau lawmakers can seek review of verdict. This is from an analyst. You can find details on page 7. The big story, kidnapping in FCT. Concern as Patami raises ransom for victims. Says security agencies not utilizing NIN and SIM policy. Terrorists kill victim after ransom payment, demand additional 60 million naira. We have deployed operatives to rescue them. Statement from police. I believe this statement shouldn't be on the paper. You can find more details on page 4. Cuba will never submit to U.S. dictates, coming from an envoy. You can find more details on page 7. APC vows to reclaim Edo, retain Ondo, capture Anambra. Troops reject 12 million naira bribe, arrest smugglers in Ogun State. And on AFCON, Eagles draw with Equatorial Guinea. You can find details on page 51. And then we have a picture story where we can see the detained vessel with over 199 tons of crude oil. And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper on the southeast state, 10 trillion naira legacy industries rot away amid low earnings and unemployment. President Tinubu stopped corruption before he killed Nigeria. This is an editorial you can find on page 16. Now, for that big story here, we are seeing where we have a chart here that says region's unemployment figure is 6.5 million. That's for those who need a job. And then Lagos realized 651.15 billion naira in earnings for 2022. The five southeast states generated a parity of 114.5 billion of the national figure of over 1.9 trillion naira. Now we're seeing about how industries are rotting away. I mean, low earnings and then employment is increasing. Now we can link it down to here, the story here that say how age restriction worsen nation's unemployment crisis, and I think that has been a concern to us over the years here in the country, Rachel. That after spending, for example, you're supposed to spend about 4 years, and then we know the way the federal university have been. You have a strike of 6 months, 8 months, even a year, and then for those who have a spillover or periparasite cause, I'll make you spend an extra year. And before you realize it, Rachel, you're even up to 30. So you can't even make it to NYC. So of course you have to write seeking for exception from that. But then you don't even have a job because you're supposed to have a job at age 25 maybe, or 25 to hardly do we have 30 years whatsoever. I think it's mostly 25. And then you'll be asked for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years working experience. Rachel, now the question would be, at what point was I supposed to get this working experience? Was it during my internship? Or when am I supposed to get there? And we're seeing that this is really a threat to actually a lot of people not getting jobs. And here we're seeing that it's actually a restriction that have increased the unemployment in the country. And I remember, was it last year or last 2 years, there was a look into maybe reviewing the age. So I really do not know if the House have actually sat down and then brought out a new age whereby whether we're having private or even government parastatals can say, okay, yes, this is the age if you want to get a job or whatsoever. So we're still waiting, and I think this is a serious issue because we're seeing that the number of unemployment is increasing by the day. Looking at some of the factors such as the environment that is not conducive, so a lot of people have been laid off their jobs. But then when you don't even have the skill to stand on your own, you don't even have the resources that is needed to start something on your own. So I really do not know what the government is doing, but I think it's really important that we look into some of these industries that are rotting away. We need to revive them again. We need to make them start working. I remember last week we saw that of the Ajakuta steel mills, where something needs to be done about that. How about this refinery that was being promised? I mean, like that of Port that was supposed to start working by last year, that's by December, and then it's not working. So imagine if all of these things and all of our industries, our steel minings, a lot of our industries are actually working, Richard. It will take a lot of people off the street. And I believe that crime will even reduce drastically because people are busy, so nobody have time for kidnapping or anything whatsoever. So I'm looking forward to the government doing something in regards to that.
I believe that when it comes to this age factor that has been a problem to unemployment, there are certain government parastatals, most especially when it comes to military, paramilitary, that are more concerned about, okay, 30 years age limit, because of course when you look at it, it's active service in a lot of way, and it needs that vibrant age range and all of that. However, when it comes to other government agency, I've seen recent job vacancy advertisement and all of that, and the age range was up to 35. So in as much as we might not have our lawmakers yet sitting down and saying passing this bill, they should work on it. We shouldn't be silent about it. We should keep talking about it. But I am starting to see some of these vacant, yes, shifting a little bit to 35 years. And you know, the challenge we've had is that we have a government telling us there is no job. We remember the past president Buhari telling Nigerians that there are no jobs, so we should go to farm. And then this challenge of age and outrageous years of experience. We see that coming most especially from the private sector, from our banking sector,
Sectors,
from all these
aviation, transport
organizations.
as well.
Exactly, anything that is non-governmental are the ones with this kind of outrageous 7 years experience, and you shouldn't be more than 25 years and all of that. But then there was a wave of that period where they had a lot of vacancy, but the requirement was kind of, I mean, not fair to an
A lot of
average
entry.
Nigerian. Yes, exactly, and that was the challenge. But I'm just hoping, Sele, I'm hoping that, you know what, the system will become better, that you will finish secondary school, go to university, finish at most 24, 23, be done with service at 24, and then eventually, be it through internship, volunteering, whatever means, your IT in school, your teaching practice, whatever it is, you gain those
Gain
experience, and then
experience.
we live above this requirement that feels impossible. But when you look at it, it's not a bad thing. For it is not really an impossible thing that a 30-year-old should have 5 years experience.
No.
It's a system. So I'm just looking forward to a system that becomes better, that when we see things like that, we'll just smile because an average Nigerian have that qualification, and you just apply for it, and then we move. Who gets it, but not because you feel like it's fair. But right now in this country, we have a very unfair system that doesn't aid anything whatsoever. So we just need to see a better. We saw the government telling us to don't go to strike, as if it's up to us. It's actually up to the federal government. But then let's see a system where there won't be strikes, so that eventually you graduate 17 from secondary school, for example, and you find yourself doing your 4 years, and by 21 you are done and a graduate
Yes, you're
with your
reading
degree.
medicine.
If you're reading medicine, you shouldn't be as old as 24, 25, and then you're done, you're a doctor, and then we move. So like, we can have that kind of system eventually. This is our hope for Nigeria. And then let's see how things unfold in our education system, in the labor market for every Nigerian, and then hopefully a better country entirely.
Well, we look forward to all of that. Mine is just they should wake up all that industries that are
They
dying,
should.
Richard. It's important. Still on the Guardian newspaper, we have the story here that says, I spent 500 million naira defending my election, says Abia federal lawmakers. And on 2027 polls, no consensus yet on candidate as PDP, Labour Party, NNPP merging talk thickens. You can find that news on page 8. Serap asks Apabio Abbas to slash self-serving 344.85 billion naira National Assembly budget. Agri Finance Budget Ministers meet on food inflation. You can find that on page 5. Also, we are having other stories here where we have Koto Cafe Keymakers Diabedu reject disposition of Ohamaga Ugu. You can find that on page 9. Tambolo's men arrest vessel with 119,000 tons of stolen crude oil. You can find that story also on page 9. We have a picture story here. We can see Yusuf Abba being protected, and also a lot of people are showing their gyration, his supporters, after his victory at the Supreme Court. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, Ohaneze youth praised Tinubu flame media trial of Beta Edu. You can find details on page 8. And on sports, AFCON Africa and Nigeria 1-1 to Equatorial Guinea. We have Wensterhoff Nwanu in shock, asks many questions about Eagles. The big story on the paper, manufacturers threaten as CRR rises 45.5% to 13.81 trillion naira. The writer under the story, trend threatens banks' intermediary role coming from analysts, companies' access to credit curbed as cost of money rises. More details can be found on page 19. We can see a victory parade that took place in Kaduna State, and then this is on behalf of what happened in Kano, that is the Supreme Court verdict. And then we have a story, one of abducted 6 sisters die in captivity. More details can be found on page 6. We have the picture story showing the impounded vessel of over having 119 ton of crude oil, stolen crude oil, and we hope to see more of these impounded vessels and then let them be discovered. Catholic bishop decry high-level corruption in Nigeria. More details on page 25. And on Armed Forces Remembrance Day, governors drum support for armed forces and families of fallen heroes. There is a column on page 16 by Owela Kemfa, and then another story that says Supreme Court verdict within trade of Kano, coming from APC. You can find details on page 9, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On this day newspaper coming from the presidency, we won't spare anyone found culpable in humanitarian ministry scandal. Declares nobody will be left out as investigating panel goes to the root of crisis. Says Tinubu will fix the issue of incompetence. You can start reading that story on the front page and continue on page 5. Federal government expressed concern over incessant attacks on power assets. Detail also can be found on page 5. Mixed reactions as Nigerians crowdfund ransom to rescue family of 6 Abuja captives. Peitami says friend raised 50 million naira, reject security architecture, kidnappers, bandit operating unhindered. Atiku charges the federal government. Detail of that can be found in the paper. PDP heads to the National Judicial Council over appeal court verdict ousting the Plateau lawmakers. And we have the writer here that says injustice inflicted on Plateau irreversible, says Ozihome. And then other senior lawyers say state government can approach the Supreme Court to set aside the judgment. And we've seen that even the Speaker of the House have said that presently, as far as he's concerned, he only have 7 active members in the House. That's talking about the lawmakers, because he said for those other 16 PDP lawmakers that were being treated unfairly. So we are seeing that they are approaching the NJC to appeal their judgment. So you can follow up that story closely on page 5 of this day newspaper. We still have a picture story here, remembering the fallen heroes. We can see the Senate President amid other important representatives over there during the service. And then we have another story here that say we will drive more efficiency, transparent revenue, optimize operations in 2024. More detail of that can be found inside the paper, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, the big story, aftermath of Supreme Court judgment. PDP APC set to clash in Plateau. You can find details on page 22. NDLEA raids Kuchi's factory in Ibadan, intercepts large consignment of Canadian load. Concerns grow over kidnapping in Abuja. The writer under the story, NUC Chief Legal Officer's daughter killed, wife, 3 children abducted. Pantami says friend ready with 50 million naira ransom for Nabiha's sisters. Edo 2024 poll shows 78% of voters support zoning. How Dangote Refinery exposed Nigeria's shipping inadequacies. You can find details on page 6. Finance Ministry takes over federal government stake in 11 discos. Home prices could strain financial markets as interest rate rise. This is coming from the IMF. You can find details on page 14. Police kill court leaders in Rivers and bust scam. LIRS affirms January 31st deadline for employers to submit annual tax returns. The details can be found on page 7. Only 23 Nigerian businesses make over $1 billion revenue annually. This is really poor. A report coming from PEBEC. You can find details on page 7. Controversy trails alleged plan of foreign airlines to pull out of Nigeria. Key players predict tougher time pressure on air travels. You can find details on page 4, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Alright, before we continue further with other paper analysis, we'd love to take a time out at this moment to take a break. We'd love to hear your own feedback as well. So when we come back from the break, we'll open the phone lines and hear what your own views are concerning the stories we've taken this morning. Please stay tuned with us.
Hello viewers, my name is Amaka Ocheke. We anchor the program, The Living Room, right here on Equa TV International.
You are welcome to watch us every Monday.
The Living Room is a very interesting family program where we discuss everything you want to know about family.
Talk about our children's mental health.
Keep watching. Our program is always here, 5:30 every Monday. We want you to ask questions. We want you to phone in and drop topics that you want us to talk about, even on our media handle on Facebook. We're there. So keep watching, keep listening. The Living Room.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper. We remember yesterday was the Army's Remembrance Day, and we've seen that the Senate President and also we're having the former head of state, IBB, saying the fact that Nigeria will not go back to the military regime again because a lot of Nigerians have actually embraced democracy, and so everybody just wants to have a very good place. Also, we've seen the issue of unemployment, age restriction that's actually make it quite difficult for a lot of people to get opportunity. Also, we're seeing that some of our industries are actually rotting, so they need to be rechecked back so that we can actually have a lot of people being employed. We have quite a number of stories on the paper as well, so we would love to hear what your own feedbacks are. The number to call is displayed on your screen. Please do remember when you call us to reduce the volume of your TV set, because we would love to hear what your own views are concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. I still have Rachel telling with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
All right, before the calls come in, let me take the Daily Times newspaper. Equity market extend weekly bullish run as investors gain 1.85 trillion naira. You can start reading that on the front page down to page 2 to see how the stock market and equity is actually going. And on the NSIP, Tinubu's Minister Buhari scores panic as Edo's panel begins probe. You can find detail of that in the paper. How Dangote refinery output will impact forex market and rising inflation. Counter-terrorism strike tribute to fallen heroes. This is coming from the CAS. Lagos insists on January 31st deadline for submission of annual tax return, detail found on page 4. And coming from the former head of state, IBB, he said military coup no longer possible in Nigeria. And outside of the paper, we have council chairman, 3 others kidnapped in Benue. You can look up that story on page 4. We have a picture story where we can see the Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, departed Abuja at the instance of President Bola Tinubu to represent Nigeria at the 2024 annual meeting of the World Economic Forum scheduled to hold in Switzerland yesterday. And that's all on the Daily Times newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, foreign reserves depletion cuts LC payments to $1.14 billion, report coming from the CBN. And we have a report that says Nigeria to lose more multinationals as operating costs worsen. And on aviation, how interagency the rivalry cost Nigeria ICAO audit. You can find more details on page 3. The big story 2024 budget. NAS approves 4.3 billion naira as personnel costs for Maribond Ajakuta Steel Koi. Salaries to go up 2.62 billion naira. Budget increased by 730 million naira from 4.45 billion naira to 5.18 billion naira. Cost self-serving 344.85 billion naira budget, Serap tells Akpabio and Abbas. You can find details on page 2, 4, and 6. Armed Forces, they will continue to defend democracy, says CDS, assures Tinubu of unalloyed loyalty. JAMP approved 747 CBT centers, and they have fixes cost per candidate and then kicks off sale of 2000 and 24 UTME. Forms details can be found on page 3 and 7. We have a New Telegraph Awards 2023, and the winners are, you can see the winners on the front page of the paper. And at the downside of the paper, there is a study that is important that says overuse of antifungal cream could drive resistant infection. So, I mean, we should always, rather than just quickly going to the drugstore and just grabbing the antifungal cream that we always use. I was tempted to call one very popular one, but let me not do that. Instead of just always going to grab another one, we have a call.
Shaman calling from Kaduna.
All right, Mr. Shema, please go ahead. Good morning.
Morning, my sister. How are you?
Fine, thank
Fine.
you. And you?
Happy New Year to my beautiful sister from God.
Same to
Thank
you,
you very
Mr.
I've been
much.
Shema. Happy
struggling
New
all
Year.
this while since this year. I've never connected with. But today I'm privileged to connect. Yes, I want to appreciate God for a life well spent. They are alive today, and before the Christmas came and passed, we are in New Year. Yes, I can see this statement by our president, Mr. Tinubu. President Tinubu did not come into Nigeria with the mantra of fighting corruption. But we can see the way he's approaching issues. Nigerians began to appreciate him. Even though most of us are not his fan, but we began to follow his footsteps because we can see that he's giving no stone unturned in fighting corruption. We continue to do that so that the same really will be written in the book of Guinness Record. What we are seeing in the EFCC is a different thing around. If the EFCC man will continue like this, they're going to sanitize Nigeria. Let those that deal with Nigerians, let those that conduct the interest of Nigerians be brought to book. Even the former minister of petroleum, who happened to be the president of this country, he was minister for 8 years, and that ministry endorsed more than 13 trillion naira. To no avail, this money did not see. That money was meant for was not free, and it's still not free. So, for God's sake, not leave any stone unturned. Let me fight all the people that stand with Nigeria, that finish the interest of Nigeria, so that Nigeria will take a better shape. We should continue to pray for Tinubu. Though he started in the back, the issue of subsidy, it will be that for the goodness of Nigeria. But if Tinubu will continue like this, then we are going to see light at the end of the tunnel. Good morning, my sisters, and we do have a better day ahead.
Thank you,
Shema from
sir.
Kaduna.
And you too, Mr. Shema. Have a blessed day ahead.
And still on the New Telegraph, talking about a study that says overuse of antifungal cream could drive resistant infections. You can find details on page 27, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
All right, let's take the Daily Independent newspaper, where we have Syrup threatened to sue National Assembly over its 344.48 billion naira 2024 budget. CUPP urges constitutional amendment wants all election cases to end at the Supreme Court. So we hope that INEC and every other person have actually taken lessons from what happened during the 2023 election, so that we don't have a drag and then we keep having back and forth when it comes to cases concerning election. The big story on Daily Independent, we have expert questions CBN sack of bank boards and management, asks the Apex Bank governor to explain details for his action. Captain of arrested vessel names collaborators in alleged illegal bulkery activity. Also on the 2024 budget, NIMED to spend 644.2 million naira on fumigation, stationaries, computers. More detail of that can be found on page 29. And on Edo Guba, we have how Ogudalo emerged Edo Central PDP sole aspirant by Tom Ikimi. You can find that story in the paper. APC vows to win Edo, Ondo, Anambra off-season Guba polls. Well, let us see how they tend to do that. You can find more detail of that story on page 6. My commitment to sustainable development in Niger Delta on the course. coming from the President Tinubu. Remain resolute in defending insecurity. CDS charges the troops. You can find out on page 6. And we still have Sheitima leads Nigeria delegation to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. You can find out on page 6. We're still having where we have the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. That's a picture story we have on the front page of the paper, and that's all a daily independent newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, wasteful Eagles failed to win AFCON opener, shocker for Ghana and Egypt. You can find details on page 39. Food forex pressures push inflation to 29%. Expert hopeful on recovery. Edo 2024 APC invites Ashemole, Ezeyamu, and others. We are with Igadalo. This is a statement coming from Ikimi. President won't spare culprits after probe into humanitarian affairs ministry. The big story is Supreme Court verdict. APC didn't trade off Kano or Plateau. It's purely a legal matter. Victorious governors hail Tinubu's non-interference. And then we have a statement, if there is a suspicion of interference in the arm of government, Friday's ruling and exposition on the part of the judiciary also did show that they are essentially independent. You can find more details on the front page and continue on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Government to change approach on discuss funding. We have electricity distributors failed to pay dividend in 12 years. President gets kudos for anti-graft move. You can start the details on the front page and continue on page 4. LIRS affirms January 31st deadline for annual tax return submission. Details can be found on page 2. And the picture that has been on most of the paper, illegal oil bunkering vessel MT Kali impounded by a combined team of personnel of Tantita Security Services Limited and men of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, that is the NSCDC, at Pennington oil field in Bayelsa State on Thursday. And that was all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On the Metrics newspaper, still on the issue of the oil theft, impounded an empty Kala vessel on test run captain. The vessel was scored with 2,000 liters of stolen crude oil. This is coming from the TSSL. You can find more detail. We're really happy that we're beginning to have all of these. We hope to see more vessels being recovered into the country. Also, we have AFCON 2023 Super Eagles battle to draw against Equatorial Guinea. Detail found on page 16. And Dangote Refinery amid ongoing EFCC investigation. Dangote sings Tinubu's praise. Hail NMPCL, NMDPRA, NUPRC for belief in historic project. More detail found in the paper. And the big story on the paper is on 2027. The gang up against Tinubu and APC. Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso will unite against Tinubu in 2027, coming from Otomi. How Tinubu can survive opposition coalition in 2027, coming from Reno Omokri. And then we have Boala reveals he got Atiku's approval to visit Tinubu. We remember there have been a lot of dragging about him, Daniel Boala going to see President Tinubu, and a lot of people feel that as a spokesman of the PDP, what was he doing with the opposition party? But here we're seeing a response saying that he actually got the approval coming from his own party to actually visit the president. Your planned coalition dead on arrival, APC tells Atiku. You can find more detail of that on page 2. Still on the Metrics paper, we have the issue of insecurity. Peitami blames security agency of not using NINSIM policy to track criminals. Federal government reasonable in moving some CBN department to Lagos. And we have award galore as Lagos Education District IV honors schools and teachers. Detail found on page 14. Sheitima depart for World Economic Forum in Switzerland. And then we have Syrup tells Sapabio Abbas to cut self-servicing 344.85 billion naira National Assembly budget. Sunday, Ibu, who opens up, says, I don't regret leading Yoruba nation struggle. He hails Tinubu. You can find more detail of that in the paper, and that's all on the Metrics newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, the big story: 7 major marketers get approval to sell Dangote fuel. NNPC, Retail, Total, MRS, others make list, await commercial terms. Ipman, Petroan to meet Dangote refinery this week, eye marketing deals. Nigerians want ex-governors to account for 772 billion naira statement from the EFCC. Policemen not permitted to search citizens' phones, coming from Lagos Commissioner of Police. Tinubu strip gob 3.4 billion naira in 6 months. We are having a report coming from Governor Spen. You can find details on page 7. Passengers stranded as BRT drivers down tools over pay. Ex-minister's friend offers to pay 50 million naira for abducted Abuja girls. Details can be found on page 4 and 5, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
Richard, I'm happy with this response coming from the Lagos CP, where he said that the policeman is not permitted to search a citizen's phone. Rachel, I hope it's not just for us to know, but it's also for the policemen to know that, Rachel, when I'm walking and I look good, you are not permitted to check the content of my phone.
Of course, you need
That's
a permit or a warrant for
or
any
a warrant.
search.
You have a
are
search
supposed to
warrant. And
do.
sometimes when you talk, it make it look as if you do not know your right as a citizen. And that's where we have the issue of maltreatment, harassment, molestation coming from the police. So just like we said, I think this is coming from in relation to the protest that held in Lagos regarding some of the things that are happening there. I just hope that we'll have a very good relationship. I mean, police are meant to be our friends, so we intend to maintain that friendship because it means a lot to us. I mean, they should be the first people for me to go and meet and say, this is what is happening to me, and then the police will be able to rectify that. So we look forward to seeing a better relationship between the police force and the citizens of Nigeria.
I mean, Shala, this is in line with what we started talking about on Friday, saying that it's also important for us as Nigerians, as citizens, as the civilians, to know what is our right. At the same time, knowing what is the police right. So that if I know my right, I'll play my part, doing my own duty, and knowing what the police has a right to, he plays his own duty. And I believe for Lagosians, now they know that, you know what, if a policeman tries harassing you concerning your phone, you have the right to say, no, you don't have a permit to search my phone. Because a phone is something personal, just like your house. That's why police needs a warrant to search your home. It's the same thing with your phone. It is personal. These are all personal things. So you are not a police officer. It doesn't just have the access to your phone. It's harassment, and then it's not acceptable. So this is for every Nigerian. I believe that the police law is the same in Lagos, not state law. I mean the general police code of conduct laws and all of that and regulation. As a citizen of Nigeria, under the police force in Nigeria, be it whatsoever state, there might be different laws guiding different states, but then in Nigeria in general, I believe the police shouldn't just harass me and have access to my phone. If I am being charged for anything, and if my phone is an asset to your interrogation, then there should be that such warrant that, okay, you know what, my phone inclusive is the thing that you should have access to charging, but not just on the street you harassing me and checking my phone. So these are valuable information that Nigerians need access to, and then eventually I hope it gets to the ear of everybody so we don't feel intimidated, you know, because we want to give respect to these law enforcement officers, which is important, but then in the end we end up being harassed and then maltreated, and it's not supposed to be like that.
The police have a way of intimidating
They do.
citizens, and then you do not know when you just succumb to whatever they ask you to do. Well, let's take a look at the Nature newspaper, where we have Lagos government plan 10,000 empty cocoa processing plants by 2025. You can read more detail of that. And we also have year 2024 will be the warmest ever, coming from the WMO warning. We can see that the weather is not as cold as it should be for people who are in Plateau State. And then another part, we're seeing that there's really a climate change. And here we're seeing they said that 2024 will be the warmest ever. So we need to brace up for that. Make sure you stay hydrated as much as possible. And then a lot of things as well. Abia government initiate evacuation of galling erosion victims in Aba. Detail of that found on page 5. Bauchi adopt innovative toilet. You can find that also on page 5. And we have a fact check that say, can bees be used to apprehend thieves? This is a question you want to know the answer. You can do well to read detail of that in the paper. Dry season farmers switch to solar energy in Taraba State. And we have the WAPP proposes $156 million budget for 930 kilometers power projects. Nigeria launches agri plan to boost food supply. Detail of that can be found inside the paper. And we also have other stories on the front page of the paper. Do well to grab the Nature News and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Will newspaper, we have the big story, which is on governorship elections, which by now we already have the verdicts out there since last week. And then we have humanitarian ministry, Pope Nigerians hail Tinubu, mixed reactions trail dissolution of union, Polaris and Keystone Banks board, and that's all the news on the Will newspaper.
All right, let's round it up with the world of business going to national economy newspaper. And on the national economy, we have Nigeria cosmetic import reaches $1.1 billion in 2023. You can find detail of that on page 5. Imperative for sanity in Nigeria's tax system, detail found on page 12. We also have currency buying, selling inflation rate 2022-2023 commodity prices of Brent, gold, silver, and gas. You can find more detail of that in the paper. And we have a story here that says how to boost Nigeria's digital currency adoption, coming from an economist talking about the era. Stakeholders list what CBN must do. You can find detail of that in the paper. Top 10 money market funds for 2024. It's important you read that also on page 5. And that's all in the national economy newspaper and also on the dailies. Thank you, Rachel, for doing that. All right. Thank you, Mr. Shema, for calling on the show. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our supporters and every other crew member that make sure this program was a success. Until we come tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.